Don't worry if it's not good enough. That's how long that. Oh my goodness! I go back. I just went back 40 years of my childhood.
Did that feel nostalgic to you?
That felt not nostalgic, not ecstatic. It felt
tingly.
Tingly. No. No, it wasn't tingly. It was more like
fuzzy,
ancient.
Oh,
it felt ancient. I just feel in a gray, like weird, just feeling weird today.
We are feeling weird. I walked in your house, and your first words to me.
What did I say?
We're really honest and raw and gritty.
Yes,
we shouldn't repeat. But I will say this for myself.
I just
am I allowed to be really honest right now?
You can do
really honest.
We just both.
Here's the thing, though. So many people think this stuff and church culture stuff. No one ever says it.
We just felt like being somewhere else in our heads.
With
a substance.
I said out loud that if I had a joint in my hands, I would have definitely smoked it. And with questionable legal greens.
Yeah.
But that's just being real.
That is just being real.
I mean, I didn't, but life is stressful, you know?
It is. It's so stressful right now. And, yeah.
What were you stressed about?
Well, no. I think that was just the weird thing. We came to the conclusion, like, I it's not bad stuff I'm stressed over. It's good stuff.
It is good stuff.
And then we stress over bad stuff. When do we not stress?
I know. On the ride to your house, I was thinking that exactly how you word that. You know?
Are we just weird? I mean, are we like seriously the only women in the world who would not say, but then there's a lot of women who get to go out, I mean, because I'm not a drinker, who get to go out and have a glass of wine with their lunch or their dinner or whatever.
Are you saying you wish that was you sometimes?
Well, no, not with alcohol. No, I had a... Oh, I don't want to
get
back on that.
Other things?
Yeah. No, it's weird. It's almost, there's this wild movie, and they made a redo of it, and I forget who it was, but you would take these, instead of taking actual vacations, you would go into this room and they would just plug in to your brain a vacation, and you would come out rested and all that, of course.
So like an Instagram reel, but plugged into your brain as a projector. Yes, it's
okay. But it was a thriller, because then there was, I forgot the name of it, but it's really a neat. I love concepts like that. But that's what it feels like. I need just a gap time, because after losing my brother in heart, and then speaking with my sister, and the cat's getting overly thin, and
the cat vomits on our audio monitor.
I mean, she looks like she's, I'm afraid it's end of life for her.
Aww.
And I don't want to, and so, and then look at the dog. Even the dog looks kind of
out of it.
It's just like,
she looks like a meme.
She does. It's like, really.
She's got stoner eyes.
She's going, really talking again today on this thing. But so no, I mean, what about you? I mean, don't you feel that?
I do, because everything happening in life right now is really, really good.
Yeah.
But I also have this thing that happens within my brain where I overcommit to things, convince myself I can do it all at once. And then I questioned the week of why I signed my entire life away. And I can't say no and back out, because it's like I would fail a bazillion people. Right. And I like to be a woman of my word. But that's also why I'm losing my voice too.
Yeah. Because you did have a very exciting weekend.
Yeah.
But you learned a lot through it.
I learned a lot.
But it pushed you.
It really did push me.
What did you do?
I have been working on a short film, which I've not done since 2020. COVID kind of killed everything creative I had going on.
But you've done a number of short films.
I have in the years past, but it's weird going back into it when you've been out of it for so long. It's almost like riding a bike in. Like, how, you have the muscle memory, but you kind of have to get accustomed to it. Yeah, and it was weird to my soul and my brain all weekend.
And you felt out of place?
I felt very out of place because my character is someone completely unlike myself. But it's a good, the take-home message, which I shan't publicly display yet because it's not been released, is really good. But my character is this very self-centered, emotionally fueled, very, like, politically, morally, she's the complete opposite of me. Right. But there was this one scene we were working on in particular that was one of the heaviest, and I've never felt in theatricals or anything like a short film like that my emotions were actually kind of coming unraveled. But emotionally attached, I should say, to something. But this one, oddly, it was this like really heavy like argument scene. And no joke, we worked on it for over an hour, and I kept messing it up so bad. And like I knew it. Right. I knew the concept, and I was trying to improv a lot of it so it felt more authentic. Right. And then I wasn't getting it word for word. It was such a mess. And
how many hours had you been in on it?
Oh my gosh. Okay, so we filmed for like 20 hours over the weekend, over 2 days, which is pretty typical.
So you were exhausted as well.
Very. And it was towards the end of the day, so the sun was going down. We were on a time crunch, and I could see. Oh, it was awful because I could tell I felt like I was frustrating everybody. Yeah. And
you were that girl on the set.
Yes. And I was frustrating myself. Mm-hmm. And I got so frustrated because I hate disappointing people. Right. And I hate having expectations of myself that I'm not fulfilling. Right. And we worked for over an hour. So we ended up cutting it till the next day, and I could see someone kind of roll their eyes and sigh when it left my brain. Again, the wording, I kept just like jumbling everything.
So, by this time you have a block.
It was like maybe being in labor with your words, and it's just not coming. So the next day, I was reassured, don't worry, no hard feelings. We're going to just do this again tomorrow, even though I probably pissed a lot of people off. So we went at it again, and I thought, all right, new day, it'll be great. And it started off really well. And at one point I got so frustrated. I mean, so frustrated, not with anybody else, but myself, that man, I F-bombed like 300 times. Not to anyone, but...
Was it in your head or out loud?
It was out loud. And now set life and other actors, you hear stuff flying all the time. And I do... Well, I guess we're going to get to that. Yeah.
Because guess what we're talking about today?
What are we talking about? Because you've written about this.
Yeah, I have.
On your blog.
I've written, well, I haven't posted it yet, but I'm going to post it along with this. It's about dropping, like, how I went about dropping the F-bomb, because as a Christian, the F-bomb one was my favorite to-go word. As a really new Christian, but now I didn't drop it. Like, we have friends who tell me about different people that they talk to, that some people can artfully put it in, and every other word or something. I chose it very judiciously, and so I really did it for effect. It is a
power to
it's
it.
called an F-bomb, and if you use it every other word, then that's your expectation of somebody. Yep. But so I did it for kicks and giggles, and then I was really convicted by it. However, go back to your story now.
It wasn't even at anybody. Yeah. But I, at one point, said something along the lines of, I am so sorry I keep effing this script. Or we would cut, and I would know in my head, I messed this up again. And I would say, F. And I looked at everyone at one point. I literally dropped to my knees on the floor because I was so frustrated. And frustrated starts with an F. All the words start with an F.
They do. Yeah, that's how my blog works.
No way.
Yeah, but it is. Yeah, go ahead. We'll see how it works. We'll see how it works.
I dropped to my knees, and I was sort of cringe smiling. and also in utter despair inside because I'm thinking,
I hope they filmed that part.
I don't know if they did or not. Time will tell. They have great blackmail on me ever if they want that to publicize it. And I said it again, and I looked at them. I said, I really need to stop F-bombing. I said, frick. I'm going to try to do that. But on the way home, I was talking to my significant other on the phone. And we had a very, like, honest, authentic conversation just about things that you sometimes say.
Right.
And I shan't share his. But basically, he was in a, we were having a bit of a eureka at the same time. And he said something to me along the lines of something that had happened in his personal life where he felt it revealed the deeper, parts of his heart.
Right.
And that's when it dawned on me, like, that's so true. Because I spent the drive back in this repentance mode, no joke, before this conversation of, God, I am so sorry. I want to leave the fragrance of Jesus. And I've had all these amazing conversations with these people, like really good, gritty conversation and questions and just authentic conversation like we have here. But I also thought, what is me F-bombing 300 times because I'm not getting a script right really saying about me? Because swearing I see, and again, we'll get into this more as our podcast unfolds, but context is huge for me.
Right.
And as far as swearing goes, but in the way it was just like coming right off to me. It made me realize I was like, oh my God, am I a dirtbag? Am I a fake? Like, what, the whole thing. And then I jumped on the phone and I said, you have no idea how healing that was for me to hear that, you had a struggle of sorts. Because for me, I'm like,
words.
With certain words. And it made me think, how many people even think these things or almost say them?
Right.
And we just don't necessarily say so. But I don't know. What are your thoughts on words? Because you're an author. You love words.
I do.
You write poetry.
Well, no,
you
I don't
you
anymore.
used to write poetry. Okay.
Yeah.
So Renee's a poet. She's a published author.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much.
Okay, let me rave
And a
with you
great
for a
Smith.
moment.
I appreciate it.
Just don't try to humble yourself too much, okay?
No,
Just
I
bask
won't.
in this glory.
Well, I mean, there's a reason I was writing, about that bomb because I struggled with it, and it was a motive of my heart to just shock and awe and giggle or kicks and giggles or whatever the case may be. But I know I wouldn't use it in my writing. But I haven't been writing since, I don't remember using my writing when I was a pagan. And then I stopped for writing for 26 years. But I would use the F-bomb. But, the first time, I think with cuss words, what really happens is you can be very liberal with them, whether you're a Christian or a secular person. But the moment you hear your child say them, you just kind of change.
Right, or someone else, and you're like, wait, are they a believer? Are they not? Because, like, yeah.
And
continue.
But no, I probably... I think what's sad to me is I'll probably think them more than I would say them. Now, occasionally I'll let one fly. Like anger brings out a whole lot. I mean, you want
thinking people rob you at 2 a.m. with your patent glove.
Yeah, because when I was at the top of and I even had that in the book. I was like, I was ready, and I was like, something about like hurting their sorry blankety blank blank, and blankety, so blank. I mean, you do it to, at that moment I was doing it that way. The motive of my heart at that moment was to be a tough girl. And of course, language kind of conveys that. So, I mean, that just came up from the bottom of my like, I'm scared to death, but I want them, to think that. But if there's somebody actually down there, as it turned out, it was my daughter. So I don't know. I really, it is a test, particularly for me, what I think. My deepest deepest fear, one of my deepest fears that I've had, and I've talked to the Lord about that. I said, please don't let me forget your name. But more than that, don't let me use your name in vain if something ever happens to my mind. And that is a deep, deep fear of mine. But then, Anna Gray, I also, because we still need to talk about this, like, I think we all thank them.
But that to me shows so much self-restraint rather than expressing it, kind of like emotions. But I'm curious, like, what was your convicting point? What was the moment you knew you were going to dropping the F-bomb?
Well, as it always is, it's just this little kind of quiet moment, like, it was probably something your dad said. I mean, and now I'm thinking something about your dad. I was going to use a word on your dad. Because, he would be talking about speech. And, I mean, you think about it, you want your witness to be solid to people. But, there are times, like even in the car today, I was taking the young man who did one of the podcasts, Cody Patrick Moorhead, who did a great podcast, sitting in your chair.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. So I was driving and I was getting ramped up about something. And, I said, and I would just, like, if that ever happened, I was ready to beat the holy hell out of somebody. And I'm like, all of a sudden, my brain goes, do. One, I said, well, in my head, I'm thinking, well, hell is not holy, though it was created by God. He never meant it. All the things I know about hell. And then I say to him, I said, maybe that should be holy heaven. And then I'm like, wait. So I'm using. I'm really fascinated now by the idea of what really is considered cuss words, because I can stub my toe, and I know we've talked about this before, and I can make a different kind of sound. And in my heart, it doesn't, as we talk about heart posturing. Right. I'm really cussing, but I'm going,
so German.
German, yeah. Okay. I'm cussing in some
replacement
unknown,
for F-bomb.
Plutonian language, which is, Plutonia is no longer a planet. It's a satellite or something. So, it was demoted.
It's just like AI, I think.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's almost to me the tone of way you do it. However, you having the breakdown after having all the great conversations. I mean, we all have these moments when we do things and we're like, oh.
Yeah. And for me, it wasn't so much even, all right, taboo time here, the word. Because I think what we consider even really harsh words can have a time and place. Right. But like you said, too, it's the tone. How are you using it? Right. Like if I'm belittling somebody by a word, I think that that's just as profane as calling them something that we don't in America consider a swear word. Yeah. Right? So I sometimes wonder, is it like a cultural thing that we put more emphasis on these? But again, we'll probably get into that in a few minutes here.
Well, no, but I think
for me, it was the duration, how many times I said it. Yeah. Because if it were, here or there, I wouldn't have considered it as big of a deal. Yeah.
But you broke down in the solid rants of F-bomb. You went down with the F-bomb.
And it wasn't like yelling, crying, kind of like convulsing on the floor.
But you wanted to.
But it was just every other take, because it was a lot of cuts. Right. I mean, because we had to cut the first day, then start the second day, and I was butchering this one scene over and over. Yeah.
And you're doing it in front of, I mean, I know you're doing it in front of people staring at you, expecting.
Exactly. Yeah. And they just it's not like they could care less about that vocabulary. Yeah. Could care less, it's very natural. But I think my biggest question, and this is what I actually asked a trusted male peer who is like...
Your dad? No, he's not a peer. He's not a peer.
My dad's my peer. Yeah, no, it's a man who goes to my church who's like... 50s. He's friends with my dad. Yeah. And it's the question of, if someone's observing me, do I seem just like I blend with secular culture, or is there a difference? Right. Do you see, or is there any sort of fragrance of Jesus within me? And I think it's easy to put people in a mold of, well, here's the Christian checklist. Right. They go to church every Sunday. They don't swear. Don't drink. Don't do drugs.
They don't think of smoking dope.
They don't ever think of smoking dope or drinking CBD tea.
Right. Which is legal.
Which is legal and cannot get you high,
No.
scientifically.
No.
So that's one aspect, but I think even with like the whole Christian culture checklist, if that makes sense, if here's all the things that like you're not supposed to do, here's how you're supposed to look, like here's your self-constructed box. I think it's really important to ask why behind everything, because a lot of it is the question of, okay, is this biblical or is this learned behavior? Is this just man-made norms? But again, I think depending on a cultural aspect and where you are, who you're with, because I think about like with certain family members or friends, we do naturally alter ourselves.
Yes, we do.
Or most people. I mean, some people don't, but I do.
Yeah.
And it's the kind of, okay, why for that? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes total sense. We kind of act as, change of artists and to fit the circumstance. Like when I was speaking at my brother in heart's funeral, my sister had asked me, I was talking, and I had picked up on his Georgia accent.
Whoa.
And at one point I'm thinking,
Jimmy Carter? Was that weird?
No, it wasn't Jimmy Carter, but it was Southern. It was more Southern than I normally sound. And I'm going, what is this? Like what? I said, this is no joke. I said, I told ya. And I'm like,
what was that? That possessed my larynx.
What happened to told? No, I do think there's something to be said. I mean, we are a witness, but how true is that witness? And is it just gauged by cuss words?
Right.
I mean, seriously.
Why do you think cuss words are a big deal? Like, why do you think, and this, I'm totally just curious, like your personal observations. Why do you think, at least in Western culture, that swear words seem like such a taboo topic among church culture?
It's not. It's not. Because I know back in the day now, in the executive, the C-suites and all that, in the 50s and 60s, they may have used some cuss words. But I don't think they nearly... I think the F-bomb then... This is just me growing up, was very taboo. And, a good businessman, a good business person wouldn't be using that. If you're out with your fellow execs, having lunch or something. Like there was a protocol that I had to follow as a daughter of a businessman that, I mean, I obviously rebelled against. But, when I met people... You spoke a different way. You used honor. I'm sure they dropped a certain language, but I think it has loosened up over the ages. I'm not so sure they were cussing, who knows what they were doing in the major corporations and things like that. So I don't know. I think it's not just church culture. I think it's the whole society as a whole. We've just dropped it.
And you don't think it's taboo anymore?
I think it's become so far less taboo. And I think the knowledge of it or the outcome of it is everything is being dumbed down. So when you're hearing elementary kids use language.
So you think it's more widely accepted among church culture and secular culture?
I'm not going to say church culture, but I'm going to say I do think it's widely used in all society.
But I'm curious because, like, church
ages.
culture, like, do you find that people do judge swear words differently than other words, within the church?
I mean, how many of us really cuss
so why do you think,
in church?
Why do you think, like, in church it's oh, that's wrong. Oh, that's bad. Oh, that's not pure.
Because it's that profane language thing.
What would you define as profane language? I'm just picking your brain here.
I don't know.
Do you think everyone defines it differently? It's subjective or cultural?
I mean, honestly, for someone who had a relatively clean mouth for a pagan. And that would be 60s and 70s and 80s. And even as a pagan, I would cringe when people would use the Lord's name in vain. I still cringe. I mean, obviously, as a Christian.
You do it as an atheist.
Yeah, I mean, but I just thought, like, really, if you believe in God, why are you doing that? You know? And then you ask somebody, and then, no, I believe in God. And you're going, okay, why are you taking that language?
Right,
You know, it doesn't make sense. And, you know, why would an atheist, and I've said this before, why would an atheist damn somebody who doesn't exist? We're not saying Zeus damn, you know, and things like that.
Aphrodite.
Yeah, I mean, it just didn't make, excuse me, I said damn. I was talking about the thing you drive over.
See, context.
Yeah, and it's a funny story. We were we were driving in Arkansas, and we were going across Bull Shoals, which is a really beautiful dam. And my kids just couldn't wait. They were sitting there, yeah, this dam is great. I love this dam.
This dam.
You know, they were having so much fun. So, you know, I would think it was the standard cuss words that you're not supposed to use. And F-bomb used to be.
It's like the holiest of grails of.
Yes, it's like it's
got its little pedestal.
It does, and I don't really quite understand it. And you know why? Because I think the Lord's name in vain is the pedestal you should not cross. But and that's the one that I think the enemy would like us to treat as casual things, and that we hear it. And now it's even changed in a way, because now you see it in the movies all the time. And they're just saying Jesus, and
I don't like that either.
No, because one, I'm looking at them, I'm like, I wonder if they really do believe in Jesus, you know. And so it is in a way a social construct, because you think about it, like, what's the difference? I always tell you I'm cussing in the Irish, so I'll go shite.
I love that. I've adopted that.
But it's still...
Our ratings and reviews are suddenly going to get 1.5 stars. We're suddenly going to get a testimony, a sleuth that's saying...
Well, but I mean, I don't use it all the time.
Not edifying.
But like, I would just, you know, sometimes you just say, well, that's a bunch of shite. I mean, because it is. It's a bunch of... But what's the difference? Because we'll say crap.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And I mean, crap used to be off limits.
Right. You know? Gosh was off limits for a while.
And then you think about sucks.
Yep.
Like I know we've talked about this in a podcast, but I told my kids, my second set of kids, I said, we don't use the word sucks. I said, and they'll go, why? I said, well, because it's rude and it's crass. And now who uses sucks? But then I was thinking, I use dang.
Right.
It's just a different...
So he's replacing, it's like the off-brand. It's like that off-brand cereal you want special cake. It's like, and you get corn flakes that are off-brand instead.
It is. It's like your Smarty Fruits.
Yeah, the F-bomb's like the Baconator with real homemade barbecue sauce in the right time and place.
And it's in the right time. But so I don't know. I mean, because we use that, dang, and
why do we do that though? Why do we replace words, and why do you think we see these as like this mild word? Do you think we just give certain words more power and it's just become culturally adopted?
I mean, I'm going to hit straight at home, because I will write... I'll text and I'll go, dang. And you'll text and go, OMG, which I know you say is, oh my gosh, but what is, Mrs. Jenkins made the case, what is gosh? You know, it's just a replacement for God. And so, I mean, the rabbit hole, so she won't even say, oh my. And then you think, oh my stars. And you really...
Still a replacement.
It's all a replacement. And so, it's the tone, it's the idea. But I do like saying, oh my, just because there's times when you feel, that Wizard of Oz moment, like, oh my,
But do you think it's really even, when you even take saying like, oh my God? Mm-hmm. I don't personally say it because it feels like just throwing God's name loosely to me. Right. But... asking the actual why behind, what does it actually mean? What's it actually saying? Yeah. And even if there's a replacement, well, what if what we consider a replacement word it's like we see one as coming before the other are so much more powerful, but like, is it a replacement word or is it just a statement that expresses frustration or excitement or even swearing out of excitement, like being called a bad A?
Yeah.
Once I was running with a group of women and we were on this bike trail and we were running super hard. And I remember this other female runner running opposite direction just says, "You guys are bad A's."
Yeah.
And it's a compliment.
Yeah, you're going,
like,
yeah,
you too.
And we all want to wear that badge, you know?
Yeah, but I mean, if I compliment someone, and I have in the same aspect, it's there's nothing shredding about it.
No. So I don't know where the rabbit hole ends on this. I really don't, because I just know when, you know, even you think about it, even the boundaries that we have is like, no, it won't come out of my child's mouth.
Right.
But then, and you're not, you know, you don't cuss in front of your kids. And you don't, I really do know, I don't have the answer to all this, but I do know I dislike 100% the use of Jesus.
I do too.
And
or
the Lord's
GD.
name. Yes,
I
absolutely.
can't do that. Right.
I cringe, and I think your dad said something or your mom said something like they give it twice. And if you can tell in a movie if it's going to keep going. And
like
there's certain actors.
Sentence.
There's certain actors, and we've already brought this up in one time. But there's certain actors who like they bomb it. And last I wanted to watch this movie, and Lily goes, "Mom, you can't. That actor's in it." And I went, "You're right."
Oh, Lily policing and screening.
Because the actor, he always takes the Lord's name in vain.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, you know, the witnesses. Maybe the words are. You know, let the words of my heart and the meditations of my mouth be pleasing to you, O Lord, my God.
But I guess
my rock, my refuge.
I wonder, like, what if swear words, we just see it, and this is what I constantly contemplate, in a cultural aspect, actually aren't. Like, what if they can be edifying? What if they're not actually frowned upon and it's just a man-made ideal? Because I was once having a conversation with someone who lived in another country.
Yes, I remember that.
And they actually said their pastor would say, like, shite, except the real thing.
Right.
You know, the real thing. See, and even now it's like, because it's on pray.com, I do feel a need to filter a little bit more because it's like when you are in a culture or grow up with, like, kind of one way of thinking, preconceived notions, and I do this too. It's, there's kind of certain levels you do feel a need to moderate.
Right.
But this person who I knew who lived in this European country, they asked me once, they said, also, if it bothers you that I swear, you know, just let me know. He said, because in my country here, they're just seen as really normal. He said, like, the pastor will say, you know, in the sermon, and it's not a big deal. Like, it's a part of their culture. It's not emphasized as something so much worse. But even in the States, I mean, up north, things tend to fly a little bit more, or out west. Yeah. So is it that we as people choose to give them power? What defines it as good versus bad? And that's what I'm trying to, I don't necessarily have the answer either.
I think it's one of these independent operator things that you have to go by your conscience.
Like self-conviction.
I was really convicted. It was time to stop the silliness of my F-bombing, you know, as a... You know, sanctification is a big deal. Yeah. You know, but then again, you know, sometimes things just come out of your mouth, you know, and so like when I said holy hell today, I'm like, well,
that was today.
That was today.
Oh,
but I was saying like I was gonna give them holy. I couldn't think of anything. I was gonna give them. You know, what if I say if I'm gonna give them heck. You know, if I'm going to give them hell,
jack with it.
I don't really want to give anybody hell. I mean, really, honestly, if I take the weight of my words. But then I put holy with it. I'm like, no. I mean, again, God created hell, but he didn't, you know, it's not a place I want anybody to go other than the fallen angels it was created for. So, I think it's the weight we put on it. I also think I almost think there are times, okay, this is why I don't know about the weight thing, except for I really do try to maintain language, period. And that could be when I hit my hand or I hit my toe, which is permanently damaged from all the time I hit furniture. I hit a doorpost. I just walk into things. I just can't help it. I really try to just not make any sound. I just try because I
Dang.
Well, I do.
What if someone stabs you in the toe?
Well, I'm sure it's going to hurt, and who knows? I prayed.
Just kidding.
Beth Moore had this thing where she had suggested that we pray that our first reaction will be a God reaction, and I'm like, that's I thought about that for a very long time. This was years ago. This had to be 15 years ago in one of our studies. And I'm going, my first reaction being a God reaction. That's really wise praying. Because you think about it, angry, sad, whatever. I don't know, my anger meter's up. And that's when I have to be very, very careful because I realize it's coming from a situation where I'm grieving. I'm sad. There's things I'm working on. I'm finally working on the failed marriage bit. It's all welling up. We've been holding our breath with my brother in Heart for 2 years, and I haven't done the emotional work I needed to do because it was just been like this, tense in the shoulders. And so I realized my anger meter's up, and that's when I was barking at Lily, and that's when I called the counselor. I said, it's time to come and meet on a regular basis. So I do think it's the Spirit speaking to me, the Holy Spirit speaking to me, and it's also my soul saying, okay, you need to check this.
I think that's so important because you're right, and how you're describing it, it sounds like it makes you self-aware to the point where you're thinking, why is this my first reaction? What's going on inside? Yeah. Because I think apathy and complacency, even with ourselves, and not knowing why we're doing the things we're doing is important. And I think why we're using the words. But I think that should be all words.
Right. Yes.
Or all statements.
That's what I meant.
It's really a headspace, mindset, hard posture shift, in my opinion.
Shift.
But
I do think what you were saying, you think about it, we've all been destroyed, just for a moment, or taken out just for a moment, or we've done it ourselves with sharp words that were not considered cuss words. But they might as well have been.
Imagine belittling someone, how that makes people feel so shredded, or belittling yourself, and not even just that, but anything that's considered a negative. Right. But I don't believe even in quote unquote negative emotions. People see anger, sadness. I'm like, Jesus wept, Jesus turned tables. Obviously he was perfect in human form. So I'm not saying, we can literally do every single thing, that Jesus did because he's perfect. But
he was also tempted.
He had and experienced the same emotions that we did, that we as humans do. Right. But for some reason, it's seen as this really wrong thing and this negative light to grieve, even to let people grieve, to experience sadness. Anger is one too, because I think there is such an idea of righteous anger. And there's so many times where it's actually not appropriate to be exuberant in joy, with everything that you've gone through the past month, if someone told you, just stay positive, Renee, positive vibes only, or to your sister, it doesn't scream, I see you, God has you, and letting you feel what you need to feel, because I believe that he created our emotions for a purpose, but I wonder if even with the idea of swearing, if we're questioning what's the emotion with it, what's the why behind it?
I don't know. I don't think most people think about it.
I don't either.
I think that is the job of the Christian, because we are convicted by the Holy Spirit. I don't think we're in a world where, we're obviously not in a world where we should expect non-Christians to not cuss up a storm. But the thing is, I do think it's something that we need to check just for that reason, because we are to stand apart.
Right.
But I also, when we do think of anger is emotion that we are going to feel. What am I going to do with that?
I think it's so contextual too, because, for example, I don't see it as a negative attribute if someone, even as a reaction, swears.
Right.
And with my conviction too, obviously, dropping the drop of the F-bomb is something where I walked away thinking I really need to re-examine my language filter, like, now. And I did feel that holy nudge, like 100%. But I think so much is contextual too, depending on, like, there's certain social circles I feel I can be very unfiltered with, and where we get each other and know where we're coming from, and that's not a concern. Right. But I think there is a level also of respect for others without being a people pleaser, where you understand that just as you might be cautious in, drinking around someone who is alcoholic, like bringing alcohol into the home or something, or things that are very contextual and cultural, like wearing a swimsuit on the beach, but you're not going to walk down. I mean, some people would, but the average human is not going to walk down wearing their string attire like into work. Right. So, cause that would be deemed as super weird, but in the context of a pool or the beach, it's like, okay. It's okay. Right. So I wonder too, if context is a huge part of it, because even the words of the people we consider saints of the Bible, like Brother Paul, Jesus himself, and that's not me throwing Jesus under the bus, or these, the saints of the Bible, and in such a way that I'm saying that just to make everything seem permissible. But if you really look and dissect the vocabulary,
the brood of vipers,
different, right?
Yeah.
Is it that much
Wasn't
different
that John
than
the Baptist? Was that John the Baptist calling you brood of vipers?
I thought it was Jesus.
It might have been.
Maybe it was both.
Yeah,
need to
we'll have to check. Yeah, I'm in the Old Testament, where I imagine they didn't. They may not have cussed, but they lived a ferocious life. There was lots going on in the Old Testament that. You read it, people say it's boring, and I'm like, goodness.
It has every
gracious.
genre you could think of.
Well, yeah, but like, it's sleeping with other people and doing. It was just crazy. Here's the one thing, and I know we're kind of going in circles here, because I think it's hard to really figure it out. I do think it's something that we have to choose and be convicted of. And I don't think we should expect new Christians to walk in and the first thing we say to them is, you're going to drop all your language, by the way.
Right.
The majority of the really great times I've been convicted of a change of action is obviously the Holy Spirit. The one thing I have noticed about language, and I think this is something we really should pay attention to as a society as a whole, as Christians, is what our cuss words do to small kids.
That is very true, because that's also a contextual aspect of young.
Well, and I'm not saying just for the mere fact that they may pick this up. I think there's something even innately in these words that we can use. And yes, they could be cuss words, or they can just be negative, sharp words, but cuss words in particular, particularly the F-bomb or whatever. And we use that with a child. It's usually a slam and the whole thing. I think we are raising generations of children that are so used to being called names and called names with adjectives that are cuss words, that there's a bit of them, it just crushes their spirit.
Absolutely.
And so I think this is where the derailment of language, this is what makes me want to push back.
I think anyone considered like being labeled by a swear word, which is where I come back for my personally speaking, I won't call people to their face ever, like, cussing someone out, for example. including small children in that, because I think to a young child, but even belittling a child with no swear words, I think can be just as toxic.
Yes.
You know, it's like, what is it doing? What kind of power is it holding? But I'm curious, and maybe this is one of my last questions. And
well, I want to go back to something you said, so hold on to that question. But the idea of cussing somebody out, when that happens to you, you know, if you've ever been cussed out, it is deeply disturbing.
It really is.
It's scary. You're fearful. You're wondering what's going to happen next. You're wondering why this is going down. You feel unprotected.
It shows a lack of self-restraint.
Well, and it is
to be unleashed on.
Yeah, and you feel, I mean, very, very, very fearful and small and worthless. And so I do think we have an epidemic of that in our world, where it is just far easier to ba 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 ba. And I mean, imagine, I remember my very dear friend who takes care of my yard. She just happens to be a police officer, and she was telling me, you know, she's been spit on, she's been cussed at. I don't know how they handle it.
I don't either.
You know, they're like thrown words as if it was their darts, and they are. Maybe
that's good.
Maybe that's what it is when a word becomes a dart.
Yep, words as weapons.
Yeah, and so for you to have, you know, the breakdown, you were really more
darting myself.
You were darting yourself.
That's interesting.
Yeah, you were
Keep
just
talking.
like taking yourself down. And even your body posture was saying, I just want to melt through the floor. I'm nothing. I'm no good. I shouldn't be here. I'm not worth it. You know, all this. And you know, none of us think about that when we do it. We're just...
You're like my therapist.
No,
this is like a new revelation.
But I just noticed
that
the power of cuss words, the power of the F-bomb.
Yep.
And what it can do.
Because why would movies also be rated based on language too?
Yes.
That's what I do find interesting. And I will say, among secular hypersexualized culture, why, if they all were truly just words, because perhaps they are, but over time we have created them to use with such power that, not that just a word has power, but we as humans have over time created them for that purpose, you know?
But, and that raises a really good point too, because as we all begin to push back against Hollywood in so many ways, and they are hurting at the box office, yay for them. They've made some stupid choices.
They have.
And yeah, I wanted to say, you know, to hell with you, but I won't. Because I don't want them to go to hell. I really don't. I don't want them. But, you know, I think that we're seeing that we have been so indoctrinated by the aristocracy called Hollywood that we've adopted their traits, you know, but we don't get their paychecks. And I think we have gotten, I'm not just blaming them. It comes from all over. It's anybody who
there's a lot of power and money there, though.
Yeah,
so.
There's a lot of power money. It is
on.
the most, you know, it's the biggest way of reaching people. And you read that 1952 report on TVs and all that.
Yes.
Yeah, what was it? Out of the Shadows?
Puts on tinfoil hat. Yes.
Yeah,
Out of Shadows.
That was really good. So I do think there was an
egged for saying that.
But I think it's an indoctrination of sorts that just lowers our common denominator. You know, yeah.
That's a really interesting perspective you have, though, because quite literally that, I feel like I just had a revelation.
Oh.
No, with what you said, though, about even these words as reactions, perhaps it also is a reflection of how we view ourselves and the world.
Yeah.
And say it's not even swear words. It's just like, what's our reaction? Are we reacting just out of emotion, or are we slow to speak, slow to anger? Not that you always have to be angry to swear, because, you know, Happy swearing. That sounds like a club.
I haven't heard that one.
Happy swearing. It sounds like a type of yoga.
It does. Or, those
Yoga with your
massages with the
cat.
rock where you can't decide when they do the pedicure with the rock. You're like, I think that feels good, but I'm not really sure.
I'm having this visceral, out of body experience.
It kind of hurts, but it's kind of good at the same time. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah. I don't know. What was the question?
So, will you...
You know what it makes me want to do?
What does it make you want to
push back? Because it's been indoctrinated. We've been indoctrinated. It makes me want to push back against it. And
so then do you feel the need to tailor your language more and you will eradicate them all? Or
I really am trying very hard. The F-bomb occasionally rears its ugly head. I still remember I turned to your mom one time and I said, this is the year I'm not going to drop the F-bomb. And I was really faithful to that year. And then I think the calendar flipped over and boom, and it just happened.
Is it 2022 yet? Yes.
Yeah. But no, I really have an urge to all language, all of the words, to say I really have a desire to say the right thing. However, there are days we both wanted to have these meltdowns in different ways, where I did really just have a deep desire to just let it, just a barrage, go outside and take a walk in the field and just
beat the ground with a stick.
Yeah, just say,
let it out.
Let them out. So I don't know.
I think it's interesting just people's different convictions with that. Because I think we so often try to pin stuff as this is immoral, this is moral. And not just say, there are so many things biblically that are absolutely black and white. Yeah. But we don't have every single modern day issue and taboo topic in the Bible. We don't have smartphones in the Bible. We don't have the topic of abortion in the Bible. We
have Moloch.
Truth. But I suppose I'm thinking just our modernized... issues version. That as mankind progresses, so do the ways in which we have to biblically filter things.
Right.
Do you think that you can glorify God even in swearing ever? Or do you think there's no place for it? Maybe that'll be my last question.
I think I can disglorify God just by my silence. Or just by my thought life. I think we need to go deeper than our words do matter. Can I cuss up a blue storm and glorify God? I don't think so. But then, can I think of things that are not glorifying to the Lord? I think the thing is God raises the bar. And he raises the bar so high and he says, well, yeah, you can't do this. And I just have to fall back on mercy and grace. I've got to have the Holy Spirit living in me. I'm still messing up. The nature, the flesh nature still. It just makes me long for heaven more because I think my word choices in heaven are going to be deliciously good. And I mean that for normal nouns and verbs and, and adjectives and the opposite of cuss words. So no, I don't think you glorify the Lord with cuss words. I don't think you glorify the Lord with just some really beautiful adjectives, and your heart is in a bad place.
Ooh, stepping on some toes, Renee.
And Alan Parr had I sent you the video where he was dealing with cuss words, with couples having, making love and using cuss words as Christians. His is really, really good. Yes. And he's a Christian.
Just said that publicly.
Yeah, well, but he's a Christian man, and he's saying, "Is this appropriate?" So he breaks it down beautifully, and I hope we get to see him at NRB.
I would love to talk to him about this kind of topic.
Yeah, but I would think he would say the same. What his ultimate conclusion was, I'm going to leave this up. I'm going to leave this up to the couples on what they say and their conviction to the Lord.
This is
You know,
him.
Yeah.
Okay.
He said, but personally for my wife and me, no, we're not doing that. And so I do think it's a personal thing that we have to come down on.
That's really true.
You know?
And I would
but
agree.
I do think he brought up one of the questions, is this glorifying the Lord? You know, but then again, the Song of Songs, I have no idea if comparing somebody's breast to
Towers of milk.
Yeah, well, the goats and
Yeah.
the goats and the sheeps, and I would assume that was high praise for that back then. That wasn't
Like their 50 Shades material of the ancient times.
Yeah, no, I think if it opens up a door to darkness, if it opens up a door, if I have a doubt about it, then more than likely it's not right.
I
You know,
think
in the
that
eyes of
you
the-
hit the nail on the head with that, because I think we have this innate, visceral, really instinctive response. But I think also the Holy Spirit and that holy nudge you feel, where you feel that, which is conviction.
Right.
And I'll be honest with this topic, I don't want to say I'm unbiased, but I understand. It's like I see bits and pieces to both sides of it. But I think I would echo exactly what you said, in that it comes down to personal conviction and checking your own heart with it. You know, and I would argue too, like going deeper into which I think you're getting to as well, like the why behind it. Because when Shalane Flanagan won the New York City Marathon, she said F yeah as she crosses. And that was out of joy.
Right.
And it's interesting because when I read that, I was like, ooh, strong word, but there was nothing degrading about it. Like, she ran a 2-hour 20-something marathon, won it, and she was proud to represent America. She was proud to have won this massive event in her sport. And I wonder if there are ways in which we can use them for good, but also realizing that in certain contexts and who you're around, and even...
Is she a Christian?
I don't know. I don't see like public necessarily like professions of it. Probably more, I would assume maybe the open spiritually, because she seems pretty grounded in a lot of areas, and as an athlete, like a really incredible woman, and like mentor to younger women and things she writes. And so I don't know her religious beliefs, but yeah, it was like this point of exclamation though, where I read that, I'm like, I've never actually seen the F-bomb used as this victorious. Yeah, it's not throwing at anybody. It's not slamming anybody. It's like, yes.
I think in the end, though, Anna Gray, I mean, you have to be, if you're a Christian, you have to look at, am I going to regret this?
That is so true.
And is
So
this
true.
what, if these are my last words, do I want these to be my last words?
Right.
You know, I think you nailed it. Is it glorifying the Lord? You know, I can ignore the Lord and not be glorifying him. You know, just by like, no, my attitude can be, I just, like today, it's just like, I'm hurting too much. I can't you know, there's a ceiling here, and I can't reach you. But I still know he's with me. And, you know, whether we cuss or not, he's still with us. I mean, he was with me, you know, I mean, he's walked me, he brought me, you know, he bought me, you know, at a price. And I think maybe that whole thing that just came back, you know, my body's not my own, it was bought at a price. I think the one thing I'll say with the F-bomb, it's so suggestive.
It is. I will agree with you on that.
Yeah,
It is very taboo.
You don't need to read the Urban Dictionary to know the definition. And I think, well, but then so is the S word, you know. So, you know, the thing is, I think for me, will I still slip and say some? I'm sure I will. But do I want to improve, and do I want it to be my last words? Do I want it to be something that someone remembers me for? No, I don't. Not that.
As in, she's the person who said this every other sentence.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And especially if
I think
you don't
if it's
know where it's
habit
going.
forming.
Right. Wow.
Yeah.
So we say it's the moral T. on the mighty.
What,
juicy...
do you have any more to say about that? I mean, how do you feel now after we had our conversation, and you fell to the floor and all that? How do you feel about it? I mean, not that I expect you to be changed or anything.
No, but I mean, I think your observations and thoughts, especially with how you described how perhaps I was feeling as I dropped to my knees, annoyed, not swearing at other people, but like just saying, oh, I'm effing the script and that. I feel like some scales have fallen from my eyes. I don't want to say unbiased on this word in particular or swearing, but I really do echo what you said. I think we're coming from the same perspective because for you, it seems that you see it as because culture is progressing, secular world loves these words, Hollywood loves it. You see it as you want to stand apart from that and to be salt and light. Your conviction is that you want to be as what you consider clean as possible in your language so that you don't blend with the secular culture. And that's quite literally where my mindset is with this topic. Like when we shut off these cameras, like that's something I'm still pondering of, okay, how much is too much? Can you also relate to people? Not that I'm just going to swear just to relate, but being real and authentic, I think is super important as well.
Right.
But again, I would argue and stand by the fact that it really depends on who you are talking to, how you're using it. Right. And ultimately, if you get that nudge that's saying, nope, maybe choose something else. Or even just beginning to have the self-awareness of how you're using your words. Yeah, I think which for me, it is.
Yeah, just weighing the words. Yeah. Because I was even, and then we'll figure out the moral.
Yeah, so I'm in a gray area.
Yeah, but I mean, I think about my cat. When my cat urinates on the floor.
Luna or Abby, or do they get different special words?
No, they get one word, and it's the P word. They're pissy.
Ooh.
They're like, why did you do that? And that was back in the day when I was growing up. That was sailor talk.
Really? Yeah. And now to me, see, it's funny. I don't consider that like swear word.
No, it is.
I think I said that at the beginning of this.
But I mean, it was sailor words. You would not use it now. So, but what do you think the moral of the story, the morality of the story is of language? These meltdowns with language.
I think that God knows you and to ask him to search you and to ask him to draw up the desires of your heart. And I don't mean that just in the light of what you want from life and like career, but like, why are you saying the things you do and why? I think asking him to maybe stir curiosity in that, I know the term self-awareness sounds new agey, but it's really not. I think being self-aware is saying I'm aware of and noticing why I'm doing the things I'm doing, and I'm open to changing some of those. And I think being open and having a heart of flesh to conviction is just as important.
Yes.
And maybe for some people, their thought life, their verbal life, they feel okay with it. Not just that they do, but they don't feel that conviction and they're a different kind of place. And perhaps for others, they're in the same place that you are where you want to withdraw completely. And maybe others like myself, it's a gray area. And you're like, okay, God,
but I think that's okay. I think that's really, really okay. I think that's, I've just lived longer. I'm just kind of fed up with, a lot of things.
But there's nothing wrong with that either,
But no, what I really appreciate is your honesty. And I think it's really, really important. We both came in here feeling deeply just wishing, like we couldn't figure out why are we stressing over good days as well as bad days. But the neat thing is honesty. I'll just say this, and this is for another podcast, but using words, talking about something, using the intelligence that the Lord gave us, the wisdom that the Lord has given us, it's refreshing and it's uplifting. and it changes the trajectory of what my day was being. So isn't that interesting? Just honest conversation, honest words. Maybe that's what we're looking for. And all our language is just honest words.
Yep.
Honest, true words.
Absolutely.
You know.
See, I see the things where I talk in circles and you're like, here's it.
No, I don't.
In like
I'm a
1
circle.
to 2 sentences.
I'm a circle talker.
No.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I am.
But your circles arrive to conclusions of the period, not a
think
semicolon.
So. I don't think so. But I do appreciate the honesty.
I appreciate your honesty too, even from the time I walked in the store.
Yeah.
Where were
Are we over the Meltdown?
I think so. Yay! Woo! MTCBD cups.
I like big books. I cannot lie. Okay, so thank you guys for being on Moral Tea. I'm Renee Leonard Kennedy.
I'm Anna Grace Smith.
And we appreciate the time that you spent with us. It really matters. So just tell us what you think about language. What's going on in your heart with that?
What's your favorite swear word? No, I'm kidding. Don't tell us that.
Don't tell us.
But yeah.
I know.
Are you
tempted.
a language user? Do you use it?
Colorful?
Are you a happy swear? Are you an angry swear?
Yeah.
Are you trying to eradicate it? Are you in a gray area? Is this offensive what we're talking about?
Yeah, that's a really good thing too.
Yeah.
But
if you were to write us a testimony on pray.com for this episode, what would you say?
Me?
No, just a Did you feel convicted?
Me?